Hey everyone, this is Chris Barnes from East Brunswick Public Library back on the Read, Watch, Listen podcast. Today we have a special guest who's important in library land, but in a way that you wouldn't expect, meaning he does a lot of things behind the scene for libraries all over New Jersey. Our special guest today is the Digital Service Librarian from the Libraries of Middlesex Automation Consortium. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Jonathan Upton. Jonathan, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So my first question for you is, what's the Libraries of Middlesex Automation Consortium?
Well, first thing is it's a mouthful. Libraries of Middlesex Automation Consortium, more commonly known as LMxAC, is a consortium of 37 member libraries right now throughout central New Jersey, Middlesex, Monmouth, and Union counties. We help coordinate the online catalog as well as coordinate Hoopla and some of eLibrary New Jersey so that patrons who want ebooks, audiobooks, comics, digital, movies, music, that sort of stuff can get that through digital services, some of which are provided and coordinated through LMxAC. So we do a lot of different things, oftentimes behind the scenes. We work directly with libraries and occasionally with members of the public.
Okay, so now I have a secret question about LMXAC that our listeners just wanted to know about. Is it true that you can use your LMXAC library card? So let's say, oh, by chance you have an East Brunswick library card, that you could use it at any of the other 30 some odd other LMXAC libraries?
So yes, you can use your library card at all the different member libraries, but the services and content that those libraries provide is somewhat of a local decision on how libraries want to handle that. So, for instance, if you live in East Brunswick and you want to go to North Brunswick and check something out, but it's a new book or it's a DVD, the rules might be slightly different in terms of how North Brunswick handles checkouts versus how East Brunswick does. So, it's always a good idea if there's something in particular you're interested in, ask your local librarian at East Brunswick or ask someone at the other library to find out what the deal is. But yes, if you want to go and visit all 37 member libraries, I think all but one of them are open to the public in general. That one library that's not open to the public, at least not right now, is a college library. Middlesex College is part of our consortium, but they primarily focus on their students and faculty, for right now at least.
That makes perfect sense to me and it sounds fair. And I will have you know, as a East Brunswick library card holder, I have put books on hold from Middlesex County College recently, and they do come to our library.
Absolutely. Again, the individual library can decide what specifically they want to send. Sometimes libraries don't want to send the brand new things to other libraries. They want to keep them for their own patrons. But Middlesex College will happily send many of its materials through our delivery service. So you can pick them up at East Brunswick or any of the other member libraries. I've done that myself as well. We have an amazing collection of materials across all of our libraries. So even though East Brunswick has amazing things, I've been there many times and enjoyed your collection quite a bit. It's supplemented by all of these other amazing libraries and the things that they can provide.
Very cool. So, Jonathan, the name of our show is Read, Watch, Listen. We're going to ask you questions about what you've been enjoying. And if you are a listener to the podcast, we're going to have in the episode notes links to where you can find everything that Jonathan recommends. So, Jonathan, what have you read that people would want to check out?
Well, the current things that I'm sort of working through are a graphic novel series and a fiction series. I'm a huge sci-fi fan. And so I forget whether I read the book first or saw the TV show first, but The Expanse is written by James S.A. Corey. And James S.A. Corey is actually a combined author. It's two separate people, but they write with one name. Wrote a science fiction series called The Expanse. It just finished earlier this year with 9 novels. And then they published a collection of almost all of the short stories they'd also written. It's set a few hundred years in the future, and it combines political drama, mystery. There's even one of the books sort of has a Western theme. And there's this socio-political drama. It's fascinating. It's grounded in sci-fi. It's not really hard sci-fi, but it's grounded in physics and all kinds of really engaging things that, at least for me, it grabbed me in the very beginning, sort of this mystery, and it introduced you to this jaded police detective and this well-meaning but naive ship officer who are sort of thrust together to solve this mystery of a missing heiress and political maneuverings of various actors. And it just basically, once you get sucked in, it just takes off and goes from there. The first book in the series is called Leviathan Wakes. I forget when it came out, but let's say 10, 15 years ago, something like that. 8 years ago. And like I said, they finished the series, so it's now totally done. You don't have to worry that you're going to end on a cliffhanger. Leviathan Falls is the ninth and final book in the series. It was published again earlier this year. The first 6 books in the series were adapted into a TV show. It aired on the Sci-Fi Channel for 3 years, then they canceled it. Amazon picked it up, so you can watch it on Amazon. I think many of our libraries have DVDs of the show. It was critically acclaimed. Yeah, and again, just like the books, it grabs you. It's a slow start in the beginning, but then it grabs you, and it's good at cliffhangers. I've introduced it to many people, and they're all like, "Wait, what? The episode's over, but I need to know. Like, I want to go into the next episode and see what's going on." They get really good at doing that. It's really annoying. What's interesting about that, the book didn't actually start as a book. It started as a couple different projects. It started as a massively multiplayer online game that sort of was developed but never released. It started as a tabletop, like a Dungeons and Dragons narrative adventure. It was adapted into the book, and then it became the TV show. And the authors sort of were involved in every step of that. They were writers and then executive producers for the show. So they were heavily involved in helping adapt it and finding a way to make what was awesome in the books even better in the show. And what didn't work in the books or what wouldn't translate well, they sort of made it the best version of a TV show they could. The other thing I have to recommend that I've been absolutely obsessed with is a graphic novel series that started as a webcomic, became a graphic novel, became printed book, and now is a Netflix TV show, is Heartstopper. So it is a series. You can read it for free online, a couple different places. The print books and ebook versions are absolutely available in our library catalog. That's where I've read several of them before buying my own copies. And then the TV show, it's right now, I think it's only on Netflix. I'm hoping that it will be released on DVDs. Libraries can buy it and share it that way as well. But it is set in the present day in a British single-sex high school, and basically revolves around a group of characters, and specifically around 2 boys, Charlie Spring and Nick Nelson. One is 1 year above the other, and they sort of have to sit together in homeroom or form and start this friendship that really takes them both by surprise. And it's this wonderful, heartwarming. The friendship eventually becomes a relationship, and they have to deal with that and with their friends and family. It's incredibly sweet and heartwarming. It is one of the absolutely best cast television shows I've ever seen. Like, I read the graphic novel, and if I could have imagined anybody producing it into a TV show and what characters would they pick, like, they did a phenomenal job of casting it, including finding actors who are really only a couple years older than, I mean, the characters are 14 and 15 and 16 in the show, and they picked actors who are like 17 or 18 at the time. So it didn't feel like, oh, all these mid 20-year-olds are trying to play a 15-year-old character. So it felt very authentic and believable. And at the same time, not being overly saccharine or too cute. But yeah, those are the things that I've been, especially because of COVID, I'm watching a lot of videos online and things as opposed to necessarily going out and doing things, or at least I was over the last several months. So watching YouTube reactors and seeing other people's joy at watching this show has also been its own kind of fun, almost therapeutic activity.
Sounds good. So you're kind of reading a lot of stuff that's been presented on television or on the screen. Is there anything else that you've been watching?
I don't have television. I just decided years ago I didn't want to pay the cable bill anymore. I will watch something or I'll read a review, and if something strikes my fancy, I'll go and find it. Or if I see something and I like the actor in it, I'll see what else they've done. I don't know. In terms of other things that I've watched. So there was a British show called Big Boys, and it's these 2 sort of mature students who end up going to college together. And there's a situation with the dorm rooms, and so they end up not living in dorms. They have to sort of be roommates off campus and end up bonding together over that. That was really fun and moving. A BBC thing. I don't remember if it's been released on DVD in the US yet or not. But because of that, one of the actors in that also joined a TV show. And forgive me, I took Latin years ago and I do not remember the name of it or how to pronounce it in English. So plebs or plebes, whether it's Plebs. And it's basically sort of friends, roommates, but who also work together and go around life, wacky comedy sort of thing, but set in ancient Rome. So, so they got all togas on, and again, it's with all the sorts of anachronisms and whatever. And it's the first episode I watched, I'm thinking, this seems stupid. Why would I want to watch it, stick around for this? And by the end of the first episode, just the performances really just disarmed me. I was like, I'll stick with this. And then I ended up binging. I mean, thankfully it was, it's modern TV, so they had very short seasons, but I ended up binging the whole thing over a few weeks.
Oh, wow. That definitely is an interesting take on the work and personal life sitcom that
Yeah, I mean, it's they didn't do years or hours of historical research. I mean, it's filmed on it's better than a green screen. It's somewhat low budget and it's very anachronistic, but it's, in my opinion, historically funny, as what I want out of my comedies. And yeah, I mean, it gives them an opportunity to sort of make jokes that, again, if you were setting it in the current day, you wouldn't necessarily be able to joke about plagues or the Black Death. I mean, nobody nobody ever has to deal with that anymore.
oh, that's a shame. Well, let's try to bring it back. So,
Yeah.
last thing I'm going to ask you is what have you been listening to? Now, with Listen, we can take liberties. It could be music, it could be a podcast. We've even had people give audiobook reviews. What have you been listening to?
Love listening to people performing short stories, like selected shorts on the radio, like live.
Mhm.
Um, if you like audiobooks, you like The Expanse and don't want to read 9 books, The Expanse, I've heard, has the same audiobook narrator for almost everything, Jefferson Mays, who is a well-known, does a lot of things, and he's a phenomenal audiobook reader. Still haven't listened to it myself, though. For me personally, what I tend to listen to, I do listen to podcasts. I try and find ones that are about as long as my commute. So again, I like sci-fi. So commutes or podcasts rather that are about the sci-fi shows that I liked, whether they are sometimes it's somebody who has already seen a show discussing somebody who's watched a show for the first time and they'll go through episode by episode. So Babylon 5 has a couple new podcasts about that. It was a sci-fi show in the 90s. A lot of people are rediscovering it now. So I've listened to some podcasts on them. I think Babylon 5 for the first time is is one of them, literally what it's called. Other things I've been listening to, I mean, Shazam is one of the best apps I've ever discovered. So if I'm watching something, about music knowledge about pop culture and pop music is very limited. So I'll use Shazam to find individual songs. I do use Hoopla to find albums and things. If a new album is coming out and I'm not sure if I want to get it, I'll borrow it through Hoopla first because their music selection is phenomenal. I think the last thing that I borrowed from them was a Decemberists album. It's the newest one. I've forgotten the name of it off the top of my head. I honestly also I used to go to archive.org and I find a lot of things people have uploaded, and it can be anything from original cast recordings from back in the 60s or 70s. It can be comedy albums. I think somebody had done field recordings of like 3 hours of protests in the 60s, and so just put it up as sort of raw audio. Now, whether you'd want to use that for historical research, whether you want to use it for background in your in your podcast or something else you're doing, I like exploring collections and discovering what's out there. So archive.org is great. Hoopla is great. And the other thing, honestly, the other thing that I do, ever since I was a kid, I would record the audio from movies and TV shows, like put it on an audio cassette. Now I do everything digitally because, I like to think that I have a reasonably active imagination, especially as somebody who grew up reading a lot. And so when I'm falling asleep, I want to watch my shows, I want to watch my movies or TV shows, and I tend to watch and listen to the same things over and over again. So I will go and save the audio or download and just play, so it's not like an audiobook narration version.
Mhm.
Um, it's like Hunt for Red October was one that I actually thought was really good. I don't know why that one, it's just like out at me. Maybe I like the soundtrack, but I will go and extract the audio and just listen to that and then imagine everything in my head as I'm trying to fall asleep. I'm realizing after the fact that I've given you so few actual examples of things you can pull from the catalog.
No,
Um,
no, you did the last Decemberist album. You gave a wonderful plug to how you can use Shazam to find songs and then find them on Hoopla. In the media business, we call this a tease, everybody. So,
Hey, I can cross and upsell. No, I mean, and that's the thing where I don't have TV, so I'm not exposed to a lot of pop culture like music and stuff that way. Some of my favorite songs and some favorite albums were because the artists got paid to let their music be in a commercial. Apple is great at picking really amazing music and trying not to look down on myself, be like, oh, I like this music, but I found it in a commercial. How gauche. And I'm like, I don't care. It's good music. I find things everywhere.
and as I get older, I don't know if you've had this feeling too, but like when I'm like, oh, so and so's band's in a commercial for these Samsung Galaxy headphones, I'm like, oh, they're getting paid. That's good for them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, good for you.
Yeah. Hey, it helps them keep going and make more music that I like. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. And oh, it totally. And it's, yeah, no, I'm with you. If somebody gets out there, they're going to get other people involved. So high tides raise all ships.
I try and keep my interests wide and varied. I tend to keep music on shuffle. Like when I'm at work, I'll put headphones on just to try and stay focused. So I listen to a lot of ambient music, like Brian Eno or Michael Stearns. anything that's sort of not going to demand my attention so that I can stay focused on what I'm supposed to be doing.
Somewhere
Um,
Brian Eno is going, "Oh, what's this pang I feel of someone not hearing me?"
yeah, and so my approach to whether it's music or to a lesser extent TV and movies, and certainly to books, is basically I love working in libraries because I can have a huge different array of things, right? Depending on what my mood is, right? If I'm in the mood for something just silly and not serious at all, I want to lift my spirits, or I want to just roll on the floor laughing, whatever, I can find that. If I'm eager for something to really sink my teeth into and give me food for thought or whatever I'm interested in, I can go to my personal library, I can go to the public library, and I can go and find something that I like. And so for listening specifically, I'll put on shuffle, and maybe your listeners can help me out. I'm always looking for an app that will let me shuffle a music collection, and maybe Pandora, maybe Spotify will do this. To go on shuffle, it hits something randomly that I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I'm in the mood for. Stop shuffling and just play the rest of this album from wherever I am. And the products I use, none of them can do that. I can stop all of them and then let me start the album, whatever. But like when I'm listening to something in a car, even if I'm doing it hands free, whatever, it's a pain. So anyway, so that's my current what I want to listen to. I want to have complete control over what I listen to. But yeah. So I don't know.
You fit the research profile of somebody who would enjoy spending time personally and professionally in a library because there's a lot of research in your media consumption.
Oh, a lot of research, a lot of trying to be curious and open about a lot of different things. Like many librarians in my experience, and public librarians especially, I like to consider myself a generalist. Yes, I have certain interests. I love sci-fi. I love lots of different things. So I don't mean to say that I like everything equally, but I try and be open. And if somebody wants to come up to a reference desk and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a good example of this. I like the following. What do you recommend?" The idea is that I want to be able to provide a knowledgeable answer about that. So,
No, that sounds good to me. Jonathan, while I have you on the line, even though we're not on a telephone, but it felt appropriate to say. Now, is it true that LMxAC also has a website where you can find tons of great events and programs that libraries in our region are hosting?
absolutely, we run a website which is ever so creatively called Explore LMxAC.org. All one word, explore LMxAC.org. We have an event calendar where many of our libraries will post events, whether they're in person or entirely online or hybrid of both. So you can find events and participate in them for anyone that this podcast reaches anywhere in the world. If you want to find an online event, I can't speak for every single event, but basically, if it's posted on Explore LMxAC.org, you can go and check it out and join. One of my big projects right now, we are going to be relaunching this site in the fall because we're moving from one online calendar platform to another, which I'm hopeful will mean an easier to navigate and richer experience for you to find new programs and things, as well as other things that are going on and services that are being offered in LMxAC. In fact, I've even designed a page to list podcasts. So this podcast will be showing up on that page on that site sometime in the fall.
Well, speaking of podcast, I want all our listeners to know that you'll be hearing more of Jonathan over the next coming months, which you can check out at www.ebpl.org/podcast. Jonathan, thank you for taking some time out to talk to us about what you're reading and watching and listening. And again, thank you so much. And we can't wait to have you back.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
For Read, Watch, Listen, I'm Chris Barnes. Special shout out to our producer, Melissa Hosick. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the library. Thanks.